Welcome to Building the $1 Billion Business, the podcast where we dive deep into the strategies, insights, and stories behind the world's most successful financial advisors and introduce content and actionable ideas to fuel your growth. Together, we'll unlock the methods, tactics, and mindset shifts that set the top 1% apart from the rest. I'm Ray Sclafani, and I'll be your host. Let me begin with a line that made me laugh the first time I heard it. The quote comes from Joe Olson, who's a partner and COO at Luminate, an RIA based in Southern California. We were talking about the complexity increasing as his firm is scaling, and he said, Ray, project management can feel like work that just sucks the soul right out of you. Well, if you've ever spent any time inside growing advisory firms, you probably know exactly what Joe's talking about. Endless status meetings, updates without progress, tools layered on top of tools, and capital investments that never quite deliver the ROI that was originally promised. Well, that version of project management is indeed soul-sucking. But here's the deeper problem. In today's advisory business, poor execution is no longer frustrating, it's expensive. Execution has actually become a margin issue. The economics of running a wealth advisory business have changed dramatically over the past decade. Human capital costs, well, they continue to rise. The tech stack and the tech spending continues climbing and expanding. And compliance and operational complexity are always increasing. And now we're entering into an AI-accelerated world where firms must continue investing in technology just to remain competitive. At the same time, many advisory firms are actually expanding the services they provide to clients. More planning, more coordination, more reporting, more tax and estate integration. And fees are not always rising at the same pace. And so when that all happens, something subtle begins to occur. Margins compress quietly. In fact, at ClientWise, we call this margin compression the carbon monoxide of margin compression. You don't see it, you don't smell it, you just deliver more services to existing clients for the same fee. Now, add on another factor, projects that drift, projects that expand in scope, that require rework. Every one of those issues quietly erodes profitability. On the other hand, projects delivered on time, within scope, and properly integrated protect margins and free leadership capacity. I'm talking about projects not only for clients, but projects internally, like how you're running your firm. That's why project management, when done well, isn't overhead, it's economic discipline. And this idea is not new. Decades ago, companies like Motorola and General Electric institutionalized structured execution through something called Six Sigma. Six Sigma initiatives were not casual improvement efforts. They were formal projects, defined scope, clear ownership, timelines, measurable outcomes, and budget. The lesson here was simple. Execution should be structured, repeatable, and tied to results and outcomes, not dependent upon heroics. Advisory firms today are more complex than those companies were when Six Sigma began, but the principle still holds. Execution requires leadership. Now, here's where many firms get all this wrong. Historically, advisory firms treated project management as administrative work, tracking tasks, scheduling meetings, following up on action items. But that view strips the work of meaning, because in a modern financial advisory firm, project management is execution leadership. It is how strategy survives contact with reality. And it is exactly how complexity gets integrated rather than amplified. Think about how most advisory firms operate today. A new tech stack or new platform gets implemented. That platform affects the client experience. Changes in the client experience affect operations. Operation changes affect compliance. Talent initiatives influence service delivery. Whoa, everything connects. Without clear execution ownership, workflows fragment and priorities collide. As firms right now are expanding services at a pretty good rate in our business, we're noticing this notion of project management is getting more and more important. At scale, most firms need a project management office, not just a project management leader. This isn't bureaucracy, it's infrastructure, an execution nerve center. Technology is also evolving quickly. Platforms like ClickUp, Asana, Monday.com, they're no longer task trackers. In fact, now they use AI to summarize progress, flag bottlenecks, forecast timelines, and reduce administrative noise. In other words, AI is improving the tools. It does not replace execution leadership. If anything, it increases the need for it. Firms that adopt AI without strong project leadership simply add complexity. Firms that combine AI with disciplined execution, they gain leverage. Now, let's talk about another mistake I see firms making. They centralize project management into a single role and then hope it scales. Believe me, it does not. Everyone on the team needs to understand the fundamentals of project management, not because everybody must become a project manager, but because everybody must understand how work moves from a simple idea to execution. Scope, dependencies, ownership, risk, budget, and timelines. The Project Management Institute has studied this for years. Organizations with higher project maturity consistently outperform their peers. Why? Because execution capability is distributed across the organization rather than concentrated in one seat. At ClientWise, we call this interdependence. Teams share a common language, friction declines, rework declines, and leaders spend less time chasing updates. Something else happens that's pretty important. When teams understand project management, they begin to develop an owner's mindset. People stop waiting for direction. They begin thinking strategically. When a new idea emerges, the conversation shifts. Instead of, should we try this? Or, tell me, boss, what should we do? The team begins asking different questions. Does this initiative support our priorities? Does it align with our OKRs? What resources will it require? What trade-offs will it create? What return should we expect on the investment? You see, work stops being activity. It becomes outcome-driven. Over time, this discipline sharpens execution, it reduces wasted effort, and improves profitability. Now, let me address a few myths I hear frequently. The first myth, project management, Ray, it kills creativity. Well, here's the reality. Project management protects creativity by removing chaos. The second myth I hear frequently is only project managers, Ray, need project skills. Well, the reality, strategy and execution are a team sport. Third myth, tools solve execution problems. The reality, tools amplify whatever discipline already exists. Now, if you're serious about scaling your firm, start with one simple question for your leadership team. Do we treat project management as administrative support or as execution leadership? Then evaluate four things. The first, ownership. Is there clear accountability for delivering strategic initiatives? Second, authority. Does your project leader or leaders have the credibility, the street cred they need with the team to access and resolve trade-offs across all senior leaders? Third, evaluate capability. Are the team members trained in project management fundamentals so execution does not bottleneck within one area or one seat? And then evaluate number four, economics. Are projects delivered on time and within scope? Or are overruns quietly eroding your margins? If you don't like the honest answers to those questions, you do not have a project management problem, you have a leadership design problem. But that problem is fixable. Standardize processes, digitize workflows, improve communications across the teams. While project management can feel soul-sucking at times when it's reduced to chasing tasks, it becomes energizing when it focuses on progress, alignment, and results. And in a world of tighter margins and growing complexity, execution matters more than ever. Execution requires leadership. That's not bureaucracy. That's how enduring firms are built. Before we wrap today's episode, let me leave you with a couple of questions to reflect upon. The first, where in your current project pipeline is scope drifting or rework quietly eroding your margins? And what leadership changes would prevent that from happening again? If you enjoy these short, practical conversations, please share this episode with a colleague or your leadership team. And if you want more insights on building enduring advisory firms, please consider following this podcast, Building the $1 Billion Business, and check out the ClientWise Best in the Business blog if you haven't already. Well, thanks for tuning in, and that's a wrap. Until next time, this is Ray Sclafani. Keep building, growing, and striving for greatness. To Together, we'll redefine what's possible in the world of wealth management. Be sure to check back for our latest episode and article.